Hello and welcome. This is Jim Kaufman with Rankin Technical College. This video is a code along of a student directory, and you can use this kind of as a basis for your final project. So you're not going to want to create the same thing, but you probably should. You actually should create this and use this as a basis for what you're going to actually submit. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and walk through this as if like I am going to be, submitting my final project, right? Creating, building, and submitting my final project. So if you have not already, please go ahead and check out the video, the final project rubric overview. So make sure you check out that before you kind of start this. Just kind of helps you understand what we're trying to achieve here. Okay, so first we're going to go ahead and create our public repository. So I'm going to go here to my GitHub repository. Just go to the root folder here, right? And then you can click on repositories here. All right, or you can come over here up the top of the right and click on repositories as well. Then you want to go ahead and click the Do button here. And go ahead and create one called AWD1000 Final Project. It doesn't have to be exact like that, but just something that's descriptive that we know what it is. So here you should, by default, you should have yours probably selected. I have an additional option there. And then here, just go ahead and put a description in here. Fall 2025, AWD 1000 final project. All right. And then let's go ahead and, put a README here just so we have actually something. You can choose a license as well. So I'm doing a README file and an MIT license just so when you create this, because it's blank, at least it'll have something in there to start out with, okay? So pretty much that, you can just go ahead and do that. And then you make sure it's public. Very important to make sure it's public, no template. Okay. And then go ahead and create your repository. Now I know in a previous assignment we went ahead and used command line for doing some Git commands. You can do that if you want. You can actually clone it to bring it in, right? That's, I think, what we did on the React 3 lab assignment. We went ahead and did it that way. Or you can use GitHub Desktop. For now, I will go ahead and just do it kind of the way that you might be more used to handling Git is within GitHub Desktop. So here we want to go ahead and click on this code here, and because we're going to do a clone here. There's different options here. You want to make sure you got the HTTPS one, and you're going to have the basically the URL to this new repository you created. We're going to copy that. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and bring up GitHub Desktop here. Go to File, Clone Repository, and then you want to make sure that you have URL selected. You have different options here. Make sure URL is the one. Paste the URL in here. Okay. Now, as far as local path, one thing I did want to mention is that we're going to be, this final is going to be deployed to GitHub Pages so you can view it live, just like we did on the React 3 lab assignment. So we wanted to view that live. We use that GH Pages. So there can be a problem if your path is too long. Okay, if this path is too long, it can cause a problem. Okay, now this is a short one, right? But sometimes you might have 10 different folders deep or so, right? So you don't want to make it too much. So you want to kind of, I would, if you have a very deep folder here, because it's going to kind of put it your last thing that you created here, and you want to make sure you kind of select, make sure you don't include this or as part of your coursework repository when working on. So you want to make sure you create this outside of that. Okay, I've got a folder here. I'm actually going to copy my where I want this to be. This folder contains files get clone. Can only clone empty folders. Okay, yeah, so I need to fix that real quick. So that's interesting. It's just telling you that you've already got some Git there and you can't do it there. So let me fix that. You know, it doesn't hurt when these kinds of problems exist. So you can see how to work through that. I'm probably just going to choose another directory here. So I'm just going to just create a new folder here. Use that one. Okay. So I'm going to copy that. And I'll come back here and put this here. Okay, and then we're just going to go ahead and clone it to there. All right. And so obviously no changes. You haven't done anything. You're not going to see your files here at all, but you can show it in Explorer. You can view it on GitHub. I'm sure you've seen all these options before, but just kind of mentioning it. And or open in Visual Studio Code. If for some reason you don't have that, you're going to have to go there manually. Okay, so then we're in our repository. We have our license and our README. Okay. And then, so the next thing I want to do is we're going to use vite to create that boilerplate React app. So I'm going to go here to Terminal, New Terminal. And so then under here, we're going to do the command for creating the app. So for me, this app I'm creating is basically kind of a student directory, right? Now, whatever, you can just call your final project, or if depends on what you're doing, just make sure you look at that video on the final rubric where I kind of described that, you need to come up with your own concept. You're not going to be doing the student directory. You're going to be doing something different. Books, movies, whatever concept you come up with, right? So you could call it, books, inventory, whatever you're doing, right? Oh, what happened there? I know what happened. It helps if I had NPM there first. So just understand, there's going to be times that, you're going to be doing things and your little errors, you make mistakes. We all do, right? I do all the time as well. So, you just kind of have to work through things. I just forgot to put NPM first, right? Got to have NPM, Node Package Manager, before you run this command, right? And then here it's going to ask us, so there's different ways to do this. One time I had those dash and I passed those template things. If you don't do that, which I didn't do it this time, then you have to select the framework, okay? And in this case, I'm going to use the arrow keys and your keyboard arrow keys. Go down to React here, hit the Enter key, and then I'm going to go to down to JavaScript, and I'm going to select that one. And here we're not doing anything experimental, so just hit Enter. We want no selected, and then we can just install with NPM and start now. Just hit Enter. And like I've kind of mentioned before, it's a lot quicker nowadays. This used to actually take a while. If I was doing a video, I'd end up pausing it and waiting for a little bit. But it's awful quick now, and there it is. And so I just control click to bring it up, right? Hold down your control key, and then here's your basic app, right? So we've done this before, and I'm just going to go ahead and kill the server here by holding down the control key and also pressing the C, and then I'm going to do CLS to clear my screen. Okay, just get rid of that. So we're going to come back in here, and here's my student directory app, and I'm going to come in here and clean some things up. Okay, but first, well, yeah, let's go ahead and clean up a little bit, I guess. Actually, let me, because I think when I start doing this, we're going to kind of be adding some things right away. So I want to kind of just go through the basic functionality of this directory. And how this app is right here, I'm actually going to change it a little bit from what this is. A few things I'd like to change here. This is a working app. You can edit. So here, what we did in this app is there's a bunch of images that are located within the that I'm gonna actually be cutting and pasting, and I'll make them available to you guys as well. But I'm gonna paste that into the directory structure of this app, so that you got different images, right? And so we're going to be creating kind of some fake data that the application is going to hold on to. Okay, it's going to hold on to this. We're not in the real world usually hit some kind of a back-end service, a database or that to get information, but we're just kind of going to have this information, all these first names, last names, everything here contained within the application. Okay, so for each student is going to have an image, a first name, a last name, an email, and a graduation year. Okay, probably be good to change that as well, so it's maybe putting some labels for that. And also what you can do here functionality wise, you can delete a student or you can edit a student. Okay, one thing is for editing the student, I did not, so if I change this, you come in here and you just gonna change something, and now all of a sudden you're stuck here, and even if you didn't change anything, you have to click save to get rid of that. Be nice to have a little cancel button maybe here, have a save and a little cancel button in case. That's something I was thinking about adding. But basically you can come in here and you can save anything, make a change, hit save. It actually is re-rendering this, okay? If I hit refresh, even though, here, let me change this again. So let me make it 2019, hit save, and if I hit refresh here, it's still there, right? And the reason it's still there is what we're doing with this, this app is we're actually saving things to local storage within the browser, okay? And we'll get into this later on when we get there while building this app. But if I hit the F12 key here and I go to local, so if you're, let's just say you're in the console here, obviously this is something that also needs to be corrected. But, so if you hit the F12 key, you're in wherever you were last is kind of where it's going to go, right? Kind of remember some things like that and however you got things. But what you're going to have to do is you're going to need to select application to see local storage, okay? So we're actually saving things within the browser's local storage. So if I click on this, here is all of the information on each one of those students, okay? It has an ID, okay? And so this ID, we're using what's called Nano ID. We'll take a look at that here in a few minutes. We're using Nano ID to generate a unique ID. We've got a first name, last name, email, and if we go far enough, it kind of cuts this off. You can click one. It also has a grad year as well, all right? Has a grad year as well. So this is all being stored in local storage, right? If I come up here and I click this will clear this out, right? So if I'm over here, you see that 2019, if I come over here and clear this out, now it's gone. You can see 2019 turned to 2024, right? Because it actually re-rendered that page, right? It re-rendered that page. All right. Well, what it does is actually it rebuilds this from the old stuff. It's recreating this from when it does re-render it. It automatically updates local storage with the original data. Okay, the original data that's in our application. Okay, and we'll be looking at this a lot more here in a little while. Okay, so then you can also edit a student, delete a student. I'm sorry, you can delete a student here as well. And then we scroll down here, we can add a student. We can add a new student. We choose a file. So we can add a new student. And then we also can search for a student, right? So like searching here, we can just, so what we're gonna do here is we're gonna kind of break down this app into a couple different sections, so to speak. We're not going to kind of do everything from the beginning. We're going to just get something to display. Okay, we're going to get a basic display, and then we'll get the search working. Okay, we'll worry about adding a student later, editing and deleting a student later, but we'll just get the basic stuff displaying. All right, all the students' information, and we'll go ahead and work on the search so that we can also search. Right, so like here, if I put in Ruby and hit search, it's going to show that. Now, another thing I didn't really like on this is once you do this, there's really no way to get back to your full list without hitting a refresh, right? So it'd be nice to have some kind of like a cancel button here or something. So once you do that, you can just hit, clear, maybe clear would be a better thing, not cancel, clear. So just clear it, and then it would come back here without having to go up here and click a refresh, right? So, but this is the basic functionality of the student directory. You have your display, which is, reading. And so, yeah, let's, I'm going to go ahead and stop here though on this, and then kind of review some basics that I kind of meant to review at the beginning here. What is a CRUD application? So a CRUD application is create, read, update, delete, right? So read is actually reading data, right? Creating data is like adding a student. You're creating new data, right? You're adding data to it. That's your create, right? Update would be editing data, right? And then D for delete for CRUD, D for delete is deleting the data, right? So here, let me bring something up real quick. I want to discuss this. So what we're going to be doing is I want to do a quick introduction of what a CRUD application is. We already did a repository setup, so sorry, kind of forgot to follow this at the beginning. So we already did our repository setup. We're done with that. We already generated our default app. So I just want to do a quick introduction to CRUD, and then we're going to go ahead and clean up some of that generated boilerplate code. And then we're going to code some initial data, and we're going to do the display, which is basically you're reading the data and displaying the data. And we'll also do the search functionality as well. Okay. So real quick, a CRUD application is a program that allows users to create, read, update, and delete data. These are the four basic operations. These are four basic operations are the fundamental building blocks for almost all interactive applications that you kind of use every day, right? Most of the time when you use something, an application, you're adding something, you're submitting something, you're updating something, you're deleting something. Many different apps, most business apps are all about basically follow the CRUD application type paradigm, right? So CRUD, create is basically inserting, adding data, right? So adds new records to the system, okay? So for us, we're not, we're not using a database. So we're just kind of doing this a little bit differently, right? We're kind of keeping everything local within our browsers and that. The data we save is only going to be saved, like I showed you, in local storage. Anything we save, it will be saved there in local storage. If we add something, it'll be added in that local storage just within that browser's memory. So once we start all over again, when we get out of there, that'll be gone, right? When you restart the browser again, or restart the app, it's going to be gone. Okay. So, but create is about adding or inserting data. Read is about retrieving, selecting data. Okay, it fetches and displays existing data. And obviously this is the most frequently used operation, right? Update or modify. Edit is another one, right? Update, modify, edit. Changes existing data records, okay? Editing an email address, etc. And then also you have delete or destroy. Permanently removes a data record from the system, okay? And like I just mentioned, all of this stuff will be kind of doing as the reading part. We've already got data, right? All these other ones are just going to be stored in local storage, and when that gets flushed out, that is gone, right? In the real world, you'd probably be saving things to an external database so that you come back the next day or something and it would still be there, right? Okay. Now let's clean up some of the boilerplate code that got created here. So here on our app CSS file, we're gonna remove all of this. Okay, it's all based on that boilerplate vite app. So we're just gonna delete all of that out of there. Most of the time, I don't delete a file. If you delete this file, even though if we don't use this file and you delete it, if there's any reference to that, you're gonna get an error right away. You actually, in best practice, you probably should at some point, but initially, I hate for students to do that and end up with some problem, right? But we'll go ahead and leave that here. So here we don't want to. We're going to get rid of this logo stuff, right? So, and we're not going to be using the set count. This is just for that little counter they have on there. And let's just go ahead and get rid of all of this as well. We don't need any of that. So let's get rid of all of that. And now we can get rid of these too. We don't need these logos. We don't want those vite logos. So we just have that. So we just have a basic file there. Use state, we will need that at a point here. Okay, so we clean that up. Let's see, what else do we have? Let's go to our main. This should be pretty good here. We're not going to use this CSS file. So let's just kind of remove this. And like I was saying, if you actually, on this left-hand side, if you delete this, you're going to get an error right away. And, once you kind of get experience doing this, you know where the problem would be, right? But I'm just going to delete it from there. So I'll leave that there for now. Okay, we're going to just leave this just like it is. Everything looks good there. Let's go to our index.html file. Okay. And so in here, what we're going to go ahead and do is, you want to make sure that you've got a title that's reflective of your application. And I'll just wanted to get rid of those dashes and stuff. Okay, so we got that. All right. So we're not going to use this icon, right? But I would like to create an icon just for my student directory. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come out this flat icon. Okay. And I'm going to search for student. And so here's a bunch, these things are always interesting, all these free things that got stuff that pops up. And So I want to kind of use this icon right here. Okay. So I am going to download this. I'm going to do it PNG. Doesn't matter. Let's do SVG. Why not? Oh, do I have to have here? I think I have to do PNG on this one. Free download, you must add, yep. So we're gonna click free download. Yeah, you can't do SVG, you have to do that. Okay, that's fine. So I'm gonna grab this graduate. I grabbed this before, obviously, because it's put a 2 there. Yeah, oh, it's not there. All right, I'm gonna copy this. And let's go back to our code. And I'm just going to put this under public, just where it is right there. I'm going to reveal this in File Explorer and just drop that in there. And I think I'll rename this and clean this up. Okay. So we got that. So here, this one here, I'm just going to delete this. No reason to keep that one here. And then here, obviously, that's not going to exist anymore. We're going to use this graduate one, right? Graduated. And then here we have to change this to PNG. All right. All right, this looks pretty good. And then I'm gonna just right click and no, we ain't gonna do that. We're gonna. So one thing, easy to make a mistake all the time. You gotta make sure you're in the right directory, right? So right now we're in AWD1000. No, we need to be in the student directory to run this app. Even though when you when you do the vite create, it automatically starts it up, but it's just doing that internally there. It's not really, from your perspective, you're not really in the right directory to do that anyhow, really. So, we need to CD to that student directory. Now we can do npm run dev. And I'm going to bring this up and just see, make sure our, not sure where I put that. Yeah, I put it over here. So as you can see, well, we don't have anything in here yet, but you can see we've got our little icon, right? We got our little icon there, a little graduated student there, okay? So that's all working good. All right. Okay, let's see, is anything else we want to clean up right now? I think we're pretty good for now. Okay, so the next thing we want to do for this app is, let's talk about this a little bit. So this student app, we're going to have a couple of components, okay? One component will be a student component, okay? And that student component will be one individual student, okay? One individual student will be so this is a group of individual students, right? But we'll create a student component that reflects just one student, okay? And then we'll also create a component for adding a student as well, just because there's a little bit of functionality. The search stuff, we're going to kind of embed that right into what we're doing. Kind of the app.jsx file, we'll just embed that right into there, okay? But we're going to go create two components for this. We're going to create one for adding the student, and we're going to create another component for the for each individual student, right? It won't have its own, but we'll have one student component that reflects a student, right? Okay, so first we're going to come in here to source, and we're going to create a new folder. So new folder called components. And then in there, we're going to create a new file called student.jsx. And then we're going to create another one there called addStudent.jsx. Okay. The add student, we ain't going to worry about that for a while. Just kind of creating that. And the student one, we're going to work on that right now. Okay. Let's close these other things. Things we really care about are these two. All right. So in here, we're not going to do, we're going to keep this very bare bones initially. And what we'll be doing is just, creating our functional component, our functional student component. So this component, student component's basically just going to be an individual student, right? So it's going to be an individual student. So it will return HTML. It's going to return HTML just for a specific student, right? And so the way it works is the parent component is going to be the app.js file. It's going to pass into the student. Okay, it's going to pass into this file the student. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to create this functional component. All right, and we're going to do it like this. And we're going to do a return here, okay? And I am just going to make things a little easier here. I am just going to do a little cut and pasting. All right. All right, got that. And so make sure we end our curly braces. Very easy to have those problems. A way to kind of help with that a lot of times, sometimes, because you can, collapse these things. So, collapse it so you can, there you can make sure, very helpful for collapsing to make sure that, you're ending things you're supposed to be ending, right? Here's your return. You can see it's ended right here. Very, very helpful. Because there's just so many, you're using parentheses and brackets and, so many different end tags. It does get challenging. Okay, so we've got that now. So let's look at this. So basically, like I said, this is passing. This is going to be passing in props. This is going to be passing in from the app.jsx file, okay? And so in this, we are getting an image, a student image. We're getting a first name, a last name, an email, and a grad year, okay? Later, we're going to add some other buttons for deleting and editing, right? So this here reflects. Let me show you what this reflects. And eventually, we're going to be looking at a different, kind of a more completed app right now, but eventually, we're just going to look at the one we're creating right now. But, this is basically creating this, right? This is creating this. We're adding these later, but we're creating this right here, right? Okay. So another thing we kind of really want to do here is there's the idea of, doing validations, and for best practices, it's using what's called prop types. Okay. So prop types helps with validation to make sure that the correct things are being passed. Is it a string? Is it a number? Is it a date? What is it, right? So in this case, most of the stuff we're going to be doing, you know, the image, the first name, all these things will be strings, even though, you know, image isn't, but we're going to be passing a path, right? A path to the image. So we'd be passing that, and then we'll be passing all of these as strings, right? The grad year, we're going to be passing that as a number, right? That's going to be passed as a number. So what we're going to do is like I said, we're going to do a little validation on that, okay? So first, what we can go ahead and do is we'll import prop types, and here is that. So we're going to import prop types from prop types, okay? And but we're not really validating anything yet. We have to actually kind of do a little bit of validation. So I'm just going to grab that as well, okay? And let me drop that in here. So these are all the different fields, right? We have image, first name, last name, email, and grad year, and basically they're all strings except for the grad year, which is a number. And to explain what shape is, because it kind of may be a little confusing here. So basically shape, it's used to define the expected structure or shape of the object, okay? So what this is, you know, we're creating an object, right? The object that has all these properties, right? So each student's going to have all these properties, and so that's going to be an object itself, right? And the shape, that's just how prop types this works. So the shape is basically, this is the expected structure of this object, okay? That's what it's saying. Okay. So we have that. So here we're going to want to, let's go ahead and stop this. And we'll clear the screen. And so here we want to do npm install. And you can do either install, or you can just do an I there, right? And so we are installing what? We are installing prop types, right? Okay, there we go. 4 packages added. Then obviously come up here to node. We go down and we look at prop types, and here it is. And this is what got installed, right? By default, you know, I know there's a lot of stuff here. Don't get confused by a lot. There's a lot of different things here, right? There's a lot of different ones. So please don't let that confuse you. But, you know, it's nice to know that. And then also what happens is when you do that install, right? When you do that install, if you, here, let me make this small again, this node modules, collapse that, I mean. Go to package.json file, right? All your things are going to be tracked. So this, our dependencies here, we're not going to do a lot of dependencies for this, but every time we do one, it's going to get added, right? Vite, when it created the boilerplate app, put all this other stuff in there, okay? We just added a new one called prop types, okay? We're going to add some stuff for fonts as well, bootstrap, okay, etc. Not a lot though, but a little bit. Okay. One thing to kind of always mention, you know, so a lot of times you don't actually have to check in node modules and stuff, right? It's usually best practice not to, because it becomes a lot of files. Once you've got your package.json file all constructed and you check that in, that's when you can just do npm install with nothing, you know, just like this. I'm just kind of, not that this is important right now, but I'm just, since we're talking about this, just like that. And what it will do is go read from your package.json file and populate all the node modules that are based on this package.json file, okay? That way you don't really have to check in node modules, because it takes, there's just so many, it takes up too much space, right? So that's a really nice feature there. But originally, the first time to create to basically create it, to use something and create it locally, you need to do an npm install of that certain package. That way it will update your package.json file and also put it in your node modules. Okay. All right. So we've got this now. And I think just for now, we're just going to keep this pretty bare bones. I think we're good here. Now let's go to our app.jsx file. And in here, kind of one of the first thing we want to, one thing we want to do is we're going to import our student component, right? So we're going to do that from .components student, right? So that'll import that. Okay. So here, the first thing we want to kind of do here, we want to create our whole list of student, all that data for that student, okay? Like I said, this is something that you don't necessarily, in the real world, you're usually getting this stuff out of a database and stuff, but we're going to have all this data just local, right? So we're just kind of going to define that right here within our application, okay? And now a tool we're going to use, though, something we're going to use is, and if you recall just a few minutes ago when we were looking at the Google developer tools, Chrome developer tools, we've seen that there was these generated IDs. So there was this generate ID, and that's always a good practice, especially, here we're only doing like, 10 different things, and even for your final project, there'll be a limited amount. But, when you have, a lot of data, you really, it's best to have those generated kind of dynamically where, you could have you might have 1,000 records, right? So using something like a nano ID is a very useful tool for generating a unique ID, okay? So we're going to go ahead and import that. And since we're importing it, as we've learned in the past, what we also have to do, I like to keep things kind of separated a little bit depending on what I'm doing. So here's like all of our, kind of imports, right? And then, imports for kind of resources we're using, modules we're using, and then kind of ones that are components and things we have locally, and then maybe some styling stuff as well. So, it's kind of personal preference for me, but, just sometimes people just put things all over the place. And sometimes I think it's sometimes better to kind of segment that a little bit, a little easier to understand. Okay. So we went ahead and did that. So what we're going to want to do here is we're going to create an array of JavaScript objects, okay? An array of student JavaScript objects, okay? And so I'm just going to grab one here, and then I'll replace it with all of them here in a minute. So we're going to just push this down, this app stuff. We're going to create this kind of at the top level here. And so basically, okay, it's just complaining that it's declared not used. That's fine, right? We will be using it here. So here is that. So basically, I have the data for. Let's look real quick here at our app. So this is Anya's data, right? This is her data that I have. So I have data for each one of these. All right. So that's her data. All right, she has a grad year. Here is the images, which I need to go drop those over in an images directory here real quick in a minute here. But this is basically an array of student objects, okay? In this case, it's an array of 1. It's using this nano ID right here, right? It's using a nano ID. So that's going to create that, it's going to generate a unique ID, okay? So one thing we do need to do here, though, right, is nano ID here. Since whenever you import something here, okay, you have to make sure that you install it, right? Now the use state stuff comes from React, and the React stuff gets the basic React stuff gets you know, it gets loaded, it gets installed based on vite building that boilerplate app, right? So it's there from the beginning, right? But like this, you know, we have to actually install this, right? So here we're going to do npm. I'm going to do I for install, right? And I'm going to do nano ID. And then, you know, let's just check. So we go back to our package.json file, and we can see that we've got now that package as well, okay? So it's going to happen to you at times. It happens to me every time I kind of work on a React app that I forget to install something. It'll complain in there, can't find this module and that, and it's usually because you forgot to install it, right? Okay, so now we have that. Okay, everything else will be good here. All right. So what I'm going to go ahead and do though, just for simplicity's sake, is I'm just going to grab all of the 10 ones that I have here and replace this with those. All right. So here's that whole list. Okay. Just make sure when you edit something, you create something, your first thing if you're creating, like here we're creating an array of JavaScript objects. So obviously the beginning bracket and the end bracket, right? It's going to be all the way down at the bottom here, right? There's your end bracket, right? Best practices, use a semicolon, right? At the end there. And then each one of these objects, we're going to be in curly braces. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Each one of the object will be curly braces, and then you use a comma, then put the next one, right? So it would be comma separated JavaScript objects in curly braces, okay? Get rid of the space. So basically we're going to put this in here. You really don't have to worry about this after this, right? This is going to just kind of stay here. We could have put this in a separate file and imported it in. So that's obviously another option, but we're just going to leave, I just decided to kind of just put this here, and then and so what you can kind of do here, so you don't have to do all the scrolling all the time when you get down to your real code, just collapse this. So there's your student object, right? And you don't have to worry about it anymore. And you can continue on working through things, right? So that's very helpful. Makes life a little easier, right? So the next thing we need to do is we had all those images, right? So I need to copy some images that I have, and I'll make those available to you as well, okay? So let me go grab these real quick here. And you can either drag them over here. Well, I want to create a folder here. You can drag them over. I don't know. A lot of times I end up just kind of doing it this way. So there's our 11 different students. All right, so we got our images for each of our students. And obviously in our data, it has to have the correct path. Images, right? Images, / and then each image. Okay, so we've got that now. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do here is in our app module here, I'm going to go ahead and one of the important things is it's all about state, right? And state, so you want to, you want to hold on to them student objects, right? So first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and use state. So I'm going to be passing in our students, okay? Passing in by default. Now you can actually start out by doing null. So and then you can, a lot of times you'll see a lot of people will pass in null, and then they use the use effect, right? Remember use effect from the assignment where we looked up, some definitions and stuff. A lot of times you use effect to go ahead and set those, but we're just going to pass in students from the beginning here, okay? Since we have it defined right here, we're just passing that in, okay? We're not using these yet, okay? So that's why it's just telling you that it's declared but not used, but that's fine, okay? The next thing we want to kind of do is also, so we want something that's going to hold on to everything, okay? But then we're going to have some search results, right? We're doing that search. So we want to go ahead and by default, okay, by default, our search results is going to return everything, right? So we want to go ahead and also do a state for that as well, okay? So we're doing the same thing, passing in students, okay, into these search results, okay? This will change though, right? We're passing this by default, but search results will change based on some keywords, and there's a graduate drop down for graduate date too. So this will change, okay? But we're just setting this up from the beginning here, okay? And so, and then there's also, like we were talking about for search, we have keywords, right? Which is basically like a name. We're searching by name or our grad year, right? So we're going to go ahead and put that up here right away too, okay? So we've got keywords and a grad year, and we're just setting that to empty string, okay? Empty string for now, all right? So we're setting that to empty string. Okay. So the next thing I want to do here, I guess maybe do this all on one. I don't want to confuse things too much. So I'm going to paste some HTML code I have. And first here, I just want to kind of make sure that everything works here. Now, later we'll go through a lot of these different things so you understand what's going on here, okay? So I'm just going to comment this out for right now. That's for removing and updating. That stuff we'll be doing later. I'm going to comment this out for a little bit. I need to do the whole button here, or it's not going to be happy. What did I do here? That's fine. And then down here, I need to comment. I'm going to comment out this whole button. And let's see. The only thing it's complaining about is not used. These variables are not used, which is fine. Okay, so I am going to I just want to see just something's displayed at all, okay? So hopefully we're going to see the pictures and just all the basic information. You know, it's not going to be really formatted or anything, but just make sure that it's working, you know, that we started up the server. Sometimes you start the server and you get errors right away. Everything looks good there. Okay, and so I'm going to bring this up, and there you go. We have all the different students listed, okay, and all their information. Okay, so that looks good. Okay. So next I'm going to add some of the search functionality here. And then I'll go through more in depth on what we're doing on, in some of this HTML here. Okay. Okay. We'll add the search students. So by default, so all students here, all students will be, we're using this state variable, right? All students. So that will be, and just kind of wanted to mention, make sure that you never change, like somewhere in your code, change this. Whatever, if you want to set variables, you always need to call the set function, right? If you want to change your all students, you don't want to do that directly. If you do, it kind of breaks something in React. And even though you might not get an error on it, React won't work how it renders the page, because React automatically re-renders the page based on you making changes, right? So make sure that you're always, the only way you ever want to change change your data is you want to call the set functions to do it, right? Here you're doing this initially, right? That's fine. But after you set this data initially, the only way you should ever change that is by calling set all, set your set commands, either set all, set search, set keyword, right? All right. So basically here, what we're doing here is we're creating a variable called results, and we're just assigning all students to that, okay? So this is going to be your whole list of students, right? Then we're saying if keywords, right? So if this keyword thing this keyword thing will be populated based on, the HTML, right? It'll be populated based on the input field, right? So if this has data, right, then you want to go ahead and split the keywords, right? You want to split that keyword, right? And it's always good to do 2 lowercase. That way, if somebody puts in mixed case, you don't really want to do mixed case and then it has to be mixed case for it to match. You always should do 2 lowercase. That way, anything will always match, right? I'll go through this a little bit more here in a little bit, but let's just kind of see this working, and then we'll come back through this, okay? So that's that. Let's see what else we want to do here. So if grad year, okay. So this is all for either keywords or grad year, and we're setting the search results with the results, okay? Results will be, by default, it's going to be all students. But if we have a keyword, right? If we have a keyword, or we have a grad year, that can change that, right? That can change that. So that changes right here, results.filter, right? Results equals, right? So if you have a keyword, okay, it's going to filter based on that. If it has a result, if it finds a match, any matches, it's going to put that match in here, right? If it's for grad years, if it has a match, right, for the grad year, then it's going to put the result, the objects in here to display, right? And like I said, we'll take a little bit more of a look at that here in a minute. So let's go ahead and see if I can, so I did a little bit of, let's see, we did font awesome icon. So we have some icons that we're doing as well. So we need to kind of grab that so font awesome is a module that, creates, has a bunch of icons you can use, okay? So we're going to be using a few icons on this, and it has more as well. You can look it up. You can go to their website. Just search for that through NPM and that, and see the different icons that are available. But we're going to use a search icon for the search button, for the search bar, or the search button. And so, here's our formatting stuff. So we have this font icon and that. Okay. Now we can, we'll have to make sure that we don't forget to install here. We'll leave that uncommented, but now we have our font awesome. So let's uncomment this out. And let's uncomment this out. No, I think we're going to have to leave that. That's got a clear search. Let's go, yeah, let me add that functionality. So what I did is we kind of looked at that original one. The problem was when you selected when you selected some students, there's no way to get back without having to refresh the whole page in that, right? So it's much better to be able to clear out. So we have kind of a button to clear it, okay? So first here, yeah, let me go ahead and get rid of this. So we're going to have this clear search function we're going to create up here. Let's make this little for now. All right. So let's see, no reds down here. The only reds up here because, yeah, we'll be using this later. We're not setting the state because you kind of have two different options here. You set the state like using, I kind of mentioned this, use effect. You could set all students this way. We're doing this by this. But later on, there's going to be scenarios where we're going to have to kind of redo this based on like an ad or something. We add a new student. This is just going to have all these ones here, right? It's not going to actually add the new student to the, in memory, it's going to do it, right? But it's not going to actually do it within, this is hard coded here. This is our base students. We do an add student, right? We'll have to add that to this. So we'll do a set all students to add that to this, right? Hope that makes sense. All right, so the thing here we want to do is we need to install Font Awesome, right? So we're going to install all three of these. We need to install @Font Awesome SVG core, React Font Awesome, and the solid SVG icons. Okay, and I'll make sure I send you all these different installs as well. So let's look at our package.json file, and there they are. All right. So here's basically the 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5 ones that we went ahead and installed manually. And like I said, by default, Vite did this when it builds out that scaffolding for, boilerplate app. Okay. So we did that. And I think that this should display something here for us. All right, let's go ahead and take a look. Let's start the server up here and see if we're good. npm run dev. We do need to add a little bit of formatting to be able to read this stuff, don't we? I don't know. Something don't seem right with that. Let's see what's going on here. Did I not click this? It opened it up in another window. That was the old one. So let's just select a year, 2025. Click Search Students. And yes, that worked for all the 2025, so that's good. Okay. Um, let's just add a little bit of make life easier here. So I don't have any styling for this. I did create some basic styling. Um, let me grab that here real quick. Probably the biggest thing as far as our styling is concerned here, let me kill this. Forgot to install. And this is one it won't complain about. It won't complain about Bootstrap generally. Just because, you know, if you use it in your HTML, it's just not going to work. I mean, you know, in your CSS, right? But basically in your, you know, in your HTML that you have in the JSX files, it's just gonna kind of ignore it, right? So here we'll also want to include our Bootstrap, okay, as well. And to install Bootstrap, you do npm install Bootstrap. Pretty basic there. And then let's just kind of run it from there and see what things look like. All right. Things are improving. So yeah, that's just with Bootstrap, right? And so now you can do a search. Let's see if this works. Search on first name or last name. Let's just do Chen here and then hit search. So there you go. And added this clear search. So before the other app, you know, that want to kind of inherit it, you can't really, you have to go back and refresh to do it. Here we got a clear search. We can clear it and we'll come back where we're at, right? Let's see if this works. This should work too. I think we already tested that earlier. Clear search, so there we go. There we go. Okay. App.css file. I've got some styling for that as well. We'll grab that real quick. Just some basic stuff here. Basically, all I'm doing is, you know, doing a border radius, you know, a little border padding color for each one. Got some different colors for like add student, search student, but nothing. Border radius, just give, you know, some rounded corners and stuff like that, right? Not much of anything there. Just kind of go through this real quick. Yeah, okay. That's good. Let's go back to run this again, see if this should look a little better now, even. All right. So now we have our current students here, and we have search students. Some rounded corners, you know, a little better styling. Okay. I do want to put student direct, get rid of current student. I'm just going to put student directory up there. So maybe I'll fix that up real quick. It's just a simple little fix there. Where did I do that at? No, that's not there. That's in our app.jx. What am I thinking? So current students. And obviously, remember, just, you know, kind of a review here. It's kind of a bad idea. You should always start with a heading 1. You shouldn't just start random with any heading. So basically, I'm going to get rid of this altogether. And I'm going to put this thing over here. And I'm not going to do a heading 3. I'm going to do a heading 1. And I think I'm going to do a little bit of text aligned here, right? Um, oh no, this needs to be center. All right, let's take a look at that. Okay, so we made some progress here. We've got our students showing. We got all their information. We can search by students. Also have make sure you have your title right. You don't want to just put you don't want the default stuff. Got a little icon for the students. It's just because this one's if this was white. If I use the the white version of the browser instead of the dark version, you know, the light version, then you'd see that better. But got our little icon there. So, all right. So this is kind of like step one. So we did the read. Basically, this was, you know, the CRUD application, right? Create, read, update, delete. This is kind of the read, right? Reading, we're displaying. Searching is all part of that. We're still reading, right? We're still displaying information. So let's go ahead. I want to kind of go through some of the code here in a little more detail, just to make sure that we kind of understand everything. Let's start out with the easier one. We kind of already went through this, but I just kind of want to review this, just kind of make sure you kind of understand what's going on here. So let's start out with the student.jsx file. We don't have a lot in here, so it won't take much long. So basically here, we're not using useState here at this point. Later on, we will, because we're going to have to do some more things when we start doing the add and the edit and delete. The other parts of our CRUD, right? The update, delete, and and create, update, and delete. So so here we're basically importing prop types. So remember that prop types, it's a library that's used to define. And what it is, it's used to find the expected data types, you know, the structure of the properties passed to the component, right? So this is passed to this component from the app.jsx file, right? From app.jsx file, it passes this in, right? So that, and this is going to be basically the student.jsx file is one student, right? It has a first name, a last name, an email, and a grad year, right? And then just, you know, by basic here, you know, this is a functional component, right? Remember, a functional component receives all its data and functions through a single argument called props. Pretty basic here, and you've got your basically your return function here, your return here, and this starts the JSX structure that the component will render, right? The component's going to render this. Everything else is pretty much basic here. We'll add the buttons later for adding and deleting. And just to kind of review this here, again, this is the prop types definition. So this object defines the expected shape of the props, okay? The expected shape of the JavaScript object, right? The shape of this object, right? This object has all of these properties, okay? This is the shape. This is what it considers the shape of the object. This is what this object looks like, right? So pretty basic here. You know, say they're all required, right? So if there's something empty, it's going to bark about that, right? It's going to complain about that. Okay, let's go back to the app.jx file. So we've got we start out with importing the useState from React, right? This imports the useState React hook, right? This is one of those hooks, right? useState, useEffect. I mean, these are React hooks, right? So the useState's a React hook, and this hook is it's kind of essential for giving the app component stateful data, right? Stateful data that when changed causes the component to re-render, right? Because every time like we make changes on that screen, it actually re-renders all of that, right? It'll re-render that component, okay? It won't re-render the whole screen. It only re-renders that component, right? So when you save it in here, it's going to re-render just that component. It's not going to the whole page. It doesn't re-render the whole page, right? That's one of the beauties of React. It'll re-render that component, right? And a component can be just one button, actually. You know, we've got a little bit more in ours, but you know, you can break down an app to really have a lot of different components. And you know, usually that's not necessarily beneficial, but you know, you can do that, right? So just keep that in mind. That so that component has a state, and that component can be re-rendered on that page without re-rendering the whole page. Okay. And so, and here we included the nano ID, right? We did an import, and obviously we have to do install. That'll also put that in the package.json file. We imported our student component, okay? Imported our CSS here. Imported our bootstrap, right? Imported our bootstrap. And did a couple imports on some font awesome stuff that gives us, we really didn't look at kind of really what that looked like too much, but just real quick here, so this is our font awesome gives our this little search, like this little search thing. And we'll also, when we do our edit and our delete, we'll also use a icon for that as well, okay? Okay, so, and then in here, we actually created a, oh, I went too far ahead here. So this is where we created all of our students, right? Now there are some apps online to help you create fake data. It depends on what you're doing. You're only doing about 10, you know, maybe it's just best to create one. You know, I wouldn't create a whole bunch and then, you know, create one, see it work, you know, one or two, whatever, see it work, and then, you know, create the rest of your data. Don't get too hung up on that. Here's just kind of a bunch of fake data. You know, you can use ChatGPT or whatever, and you know, there's a Macaroon is a site that also can generate data as well. We're not doing a bunch of data unless you're planning on doing a bunch of data. Not too much to worry about. The important parts of this is make sure that this is an array of JavaScript objects, right? And each JavaScript object has these different properties. And for the ID, we're using nano ID to generate a unique ID. All right. And obviously for our images to work, our images have to be the images directory, right? You don't have to state just the way how this is set up based on Vite and React. You don't have to put public here, right? You just, public is available, right? It's just the way it is. So you can just start with images here. I'm glad I just kind of thought about that right now. So anything under public, you can just access, right? We also did what we accessed in the index.html. Real quick here. The graduate, by doing / that, it's just going to find this in the public directory. You don't need to put public here, right? So the same thing as here. You just have to have images like that, right? Okay, so we got our data here, and this is at the beginning, right? So basically, you need to make sure you have things sometimes in the right order. Make sure you have your students at the beginning, because if you like tried to, I'm going to collapse this, which always makes it nice. And that's what I do, get your data, collapse it, and you're good, and then you can move on from there. Because if you don't, if you don't have this before this, it's going to complain that it's not been defined, right? So you have to make sure it's defined before you use it, right? Okay. All right. So function app, this is the main functional component definition, right? So all application logic and rendering happens inside this function. So we've got we have state for all student data, right? We're initializing the state with the static student array, right? This is static student array. And so this is what we're initializing that data. So we're doing it both for the all students and for the search results, okay? So by default, search results is going to have all the students, but that may change based on what's keywords are, what you choose in the input fields, right? And then obviously we have two different state variables, one for keywords and one for grad year. And we set them based on those input fields. Okay. And then we have here our search student function. So we're setting our results equal to all students. And then here is our keywords, right? So this checks if the keyword's variable. This holds the user search input, right? Has a value. So if it has a value, meaning that you put something in that input field, right? The whole idea, remember about falsy and truthy, right? Is this truthy? Does it have a value? Does it have something in there, right? You're not checking if it's true or false. You're just checking, hey, this keyword's got a value. If it does, then you're going to execute what's in here. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to be checking keywords to lowercase, and you're going to be splitting this and filtering this, okay? So splitting this splits the string into an array of individual words based on spaces, okay? So like if you put in, let's just say John Doe, John space Doe, it's going to take it and create, create two different elements of an array. It's going to create an array, and it's going to put John and Doe in there. Let's just say you put John Doe in the input field, right, as one thing. It's going to actually take that. When it splits like that, it's going to take that and put John as array 0 and Doe is array 1, right? So if you have a longer one, it's going to create multiple of those, right? So it's going to split that string in an array of individual words based on spaces. And then that filter Boolean, the filter Boolean here, is what this does is it removes any empty strings that might result from extra spaces, okay? If you got extra spaces, so it'll remove that, okay? And then the resulting array, the results of that is going to be stored in this keywords array. Okay. And what you could do here, actually, and maybe we can do this real quick here. You could actually do here on, let's do a console. Let's do console .log, keywords array. And then, let's see, do we have this thing started? Yeah, we do. Let's come over here just for the heck of it here. So let's just, let me just grab this. Grab this one. Search results. So it found both of them, right? It found her and it found him, right? So I'm going to do F12 here. And I'm going to click console. And we have an array of 2. So you can see it broke this into an array, right? 2 different elements of this array, right? So that's how that splits that, okay? And clear search. I'm glad we got the clear search. It makes things a lot better. All right. Okay. Okay, so here, results equals result dot filter. So this here, what this does, this filter method iterates over every student in the current results array. Okay. So it iterates through every student in the results array, which was set up here, right? So it's basically, we set results equal to all students. So it's going to iterate through all the students, right? And only students for whom the callback function returns true are kept in the new results array, okay? So this is kind of called a callback function. And so if that happens to return that, it's going to return true. It's going to go ahead and populate that into the results array, right? And we're checking that just like on first name or last name here, right? And then if that's if keywords, right? If it's not, if it's grad year, okay, then we're going to go ahead and take, we're going to parse that, all right? We're going to parse that grad year, and then we're going to check for that. And if that, we're going to do a filter here. So that filter does the same thing here, okay? If it finds it, it's going to go ahead and put that result in results here, okay? And then when we get done, it's either going to, these results are either going to come from one of three places, right? If you didn't even do anything with keywords or grad year, right? If you didn't change those, it's automatically going to use the default one defined here, and it's just going to fall all the way through and use that one. If it had a keyword, right? Whatever ones that match that keyword, right, would populate here, and then it would set that here. If it was a grad year that you selected, right? And actually you could do both, right? We really didn't do that, but you can do both, right? So this will actually add to it, right? So let's just say that you had a name and then also a year. You know, you could have multiple students with the same name but a different year. So you use name and year. It's going to show, well, it's going to show both of them, right? It's going to go anybody who has the grad year or anybody has the name. So either one. So, all right. And then here, clear search just clears out the keywords, the grad year, right? And then it sets the search results to all students again, okay? It's going to set the search results to all students again. So let's look at this a little bit. Everything else is pretty straightforward here. I know that this one can be a little bit tricky. And don't worry, these are a little more advanced concepts. I just want to kind of explain them a little bit. Don't worry about if you don't understand all of it. It's understandable. It takes time and experience to learn these things, right? Okay, this block starts with all students. The all students array. Then we've got a map function here, a math method. Math method is used to iterate over every student in the array and return a new array containing only the value of the grad year property for each student. Okay. So this one is for the selects. This is the select for the grad year, right? This is the select for the grad year. Okay. Sorry, just kind of looking at something there. So, so the map, like I said, the math method is used to iterate over every student in the array and returns a new array containing only the value of the grad year property for each student. Okay. Now this new set part of this, right? This new set, this is creating, using an array of years from this, right? and it only stores unique values automatically removed, and it removing any duplicates. Okay. Maps always remove duplicates. Okay. If multiple students share the same graduation year, right? The spread operator, this is called the spread operator. When you see three dots, this is used to convert the resulting set back to a standard array. Okay. And then the sort method down here. The sort method is called on the array of unique years. It uses a comparison function. This is a comparison function to ensure that the years are sorted numerically in ascending order. Okay. So it'll like 23, 24, 25. It'll start with 23, right? 23, 24, and 25. So they're in order. So if you didn't have this function, it would sort them alphabetically, right? And so sometimes it depends on numbers, like, if you go from 10 to 11, it doesn't always work like you think it's going to work with numbers, right? So you have to do things like that. And then there's basically another map here, and this iterates over the clean sorted array of unique years. Okay, and so for each year, it will it returns a React element, an HTML option tag. Okay, and so and then the key year here. This is kind of mandatory requirement in React for list items to help the framework efficiently track changes. Okay, the value year, this sets the value that will be submitted when the option is selected in the dropdown. Okay, so these add functionality within your HTML, right? So then when you do something, you click something, the React framework is doing things under the hood, right? So I know this is confusing. Don't worry about it. If you have any questions about this, you can take this, drop this into, Google Gemini, Google AI mode, whatever, ChatGPT, and kind of go through this. That's always a good thing to do, right? So what does this mean? Explain what this means, right? Okay, so that's all I have on this. So what we covered here, we've got created our repository. We created our basic scaffolding, our app. We used vite to do that. We added some static data for our students. We're reading our data. We're displaying that data, and we also took care of our search functionality as well. Okay. And so that's all I have for this video. The next one will be about editing, and we're going to go from there on the other things as well. So we still have editing to do, be able to edit an individual student, be able to add a student and delete a student. Okay, thanks, and let me know if you have any questions, and have a great day.